Okay. Welcome to this evening's webinar. It's hosted by the Sheep and Goat Traceability Task Force. This is webinar 7, which is the last in our series, and it will cover the final move in the supply chain, which is moving our stock and selling it to our customers and looking at the improvements that are offered through EID. My name is Beth Green and I work for the Sheep and Goat Traceability Task Force in the provision of accessible resources across the country as we all learn to implement EID for sheep and goats. The agenda for this evening is primarily, first of all, to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and is expected to go for about 45 minutes to an hour. Our guest speaker will give her presentation and you're free to ask questions directly by putting your hand up when your microphone and camera will be enabled, or you can ask questions in the chat. I do ask that your microphones and cameras are off just to maximise the reception in the regions, but we will have them on for people who wish to speak. I will start with the acknowledgement to country and then introduce our guest speaker. We acknowledge and pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia, whose ancestral lands and waters we work and live on throughout Australia. We honour the wisdom of and pay respects to elders past, present and future. Okay, well, our guest tonight is Trish Ryder from Queensland. Trish is the Livestock Program Manager for AusMeat, and she is best placed to tell you how important our traceability and safety system is to sell our product into other countries, and also how much we and her as an auditor rely on good NVDs and EID, or stock identification. Thank you, Trish. I will leave it to you.
Oh, thank you, Beth, and hello and welcome to everyone here tonight with this webinar. I'd like to say thank you to the Sheep and Goat Traceability Task Force for inviting me here tonight. My name is Trish Ryder and my role at AusMeat is that of Livestock Program Manager. A main part of my role is Livestock Production Assurance Program, the LPA program, which everyone here tonight would have a strong connection and commitment to. I have been asked to talk about my experiences of being involved in overseas auditors assessing our systems for compliance and verifying that what we say we actually do. Over the years, my experience in the red meat industry, in the processing industry, and now the livestock supply chain, I have been involved in many overseas market access audits. These countries include the USA, China, Russia, Indonesia, EU, and most recently, the UK. I've also been involved within the domestic market and trading partner audits, which include the major supermarkets and burger chains. Being involved in these audits gives me first-hand knowledge of what the auditors are looking for and what these visits mean to Australia and our market access into potential emerging markets. So tonight we will go through the LPA audit program and a little bit of history in relation to that program, the market access audits and the preparation that goes into preparing for those audits. We'll talk about the domestic and market access benefits, and we'll also just touch on the preparation of livestock for dispatch. The LPA program and its history. So the LPA program is owned by Integrity Systems Company, or ISC, on behalf of the red meat industry. ISC is a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, MLA. So the MLA owned the program since 2004, right through to June 2008. AusMeat assumed ownership of the program from 1st of July 2008, and the program was managed through the LPA Advisory Committee, or LPAC, through to March 2017. Ownership was then transferred from AusMeat over to ISC in April of 2017 in accordance with recommendations from the Safe Meat Initiatives Review. It's important to note that AusMeat has been involved since its inception in 2004 and continues to be the audit service provider. The LPA program is the Australian livestock industry's on-farm assurance program for cattle, sheep, and goat producers, covering food safety, animal welfare, and biosecurity. It provides evidence of livestock history and on-farm practices when transferring livestock through the value chain. LPA is primarily linked to the National Vendor Declarations, or the NVDs. And LPA is also an integral part to the National Livestock Identification System, the NLIS. It is important that the NVD is completed accurately and in full, ensuring all food safety related details are checked and answered. This means checking for any recent treatments applied to your livestock that may include a withhold period or an ESI. The address details must be completed in full from where livestock are being dispatched to the destination. Incomplete NVDs rate high on the number of non-conformances raised by auditors during on-farm LPA audits. It is important to note that processors and sale yards may reject your consignment if the NVD is not completed accurately. All questions must be answered accurately and the NVD must be signed by the representative. A complete and accurate NVD allows you to stand behind what you sell. When it comes to the NLIS database and livestock movements, the LPA NVD number, I should say, must be entered into the NVD field when completing the movement on the NLIS database. This applies traceability to the incoming NVD and the EIDs related to that movement. This makes tracking and tracing of animals very quick. The LPA program commenced as a food safety program supporting declarations on the NVDs. Standards have evolved and will continue to evolve with increasing expectations of industry and regulators. An example of that is the identification and tagging of livestock and updating movements on the LIS database. The important thing to remember here is that the LPA program is an integral part of our industry's marketing strategy and in many ways underpins market access and other opportunities for domestic trade. The LPA vision: to assist Australia's red meat industry maintain its enviable reputation as the supplier of safe and healthy red meat to both domestic and international customers. Now, the next couple of slides I'm going to show you is just going to give you an insight of how many LPA accredited producers we have out there and how the species type, I guess, is broken up into the different categories. So looking at this slide, as far as LPA accredited producers go, we have 173,851 accredited producers Australia-wide. Breaking that down into states, we can see there that New South Wales holds the highest number of accredited users, with 36% users coming from New South Wales, followed there by Victoria with 44,000 plus, and then closely followed by Queensland with 36,000. Just breaking that down into a percentage there, just seeing here that, again, New South Wales with a 36% hold on accredited users. And if we break that down into species type, you can see that the cattle industry hold 58% of that share, with the sheep coming in at 30%, just over 30%, and the goats coming in at just over 5%. So the goat and the sheep industry together have a significant contribution towards the red meat industry. As I said earlier, the LPA program has been in place since 2004. So since 2004, the LPA program has conducted over 86,000 LPA audits across our country, and across many different species types. If I can just show you the next graph here, it will break down the audit types that have been completed since 2004. So we can see there was a lot of random audits when this program first started out, but then just going by the colour coding, you can see now where the sheep or the NRS funding has come into play, where the sheep and goat industry started to get more targeted audits for their particular category. When I say the word target, I don't mean because the sheep and goats have done anything wrong. It's more about focusing on the sheep and goat industries along with the other species.
Can I just ask a question there, Trish? You say NRS, can you explain to people what that means, please?
Yeah. So the NRS, the National Residue Survey. So the National Residue Survey has funding from levies that are distributed through to different bodies, and the NRS is where all the residue testing is done on plant residue testing. So samples that are collected from animals over the hooks, they're tested for different types of chemicals, and the NRS, National Residue Survey, based in Canberra, manages the results, and as a result of that can trigger an audit at particular sites due to low-level detections of residue. Doesn't necessarily mean it's been a violation, it's just that there's been a low-level chemical result there. And just to put you in the bigger picture now, if you can see this screen, it just outlines the coverage that we've had in the audits that we've conducted over the years with the data that we've been able to source. And you can see it's quite full in that New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, East Coast there. We can see we're doing audits over here in WA, and there's a scatter of audits up in the Northern Territory as well. And it goes without saying that Tasmania, we also audit down in Tasmania as well. So that was just putting you in the picture, I guess, of how many producers we have out there, what type of audits that we do. And now I'm going to go on to the market access audits and the preparation that it takes to be part of that. So it's important to note that it takes a joint effort from government, industry and producers to prepare for a market access audit. The auditors can let the Commonwealth know what it is that they wish to see. That includes properties, feedlots, sale yards, processes. The logistics behind getting all these sites lined up for audits is a credit to everyone that is selected to participate. The participants know that these audits are important for our continued, or in some cases, new trading partners. So working with industry to identify producers to take part in the audit. So anyone can be selected to take part in a market access audit. Being selected generally means that you have good, proven systems in place. Selected producers are generally provided by the processor's livestock department, the livestock team, as they have a close working relationship with the producer. Once we have identified the producer, AusMeat will then make contact with the producers to organise some pre-audit visits. AusMeat representatives, generally myself and the general manager of livestock, will visit the property. In our last case, when we done the UK audit with the UK delegation, we actually had a representative from ISC come to those pre-audits as well. So we done the pre-visits. We generally do that pre-visit to assess the property the record keeping system, ensure the records are completed in full, that NVDs are complete, and the NLAS database is up to date for movements. The systems presented will be tested as they would by an international auditor. This is not to put the selected producer under any unnecessary stress. It's to ensure that the producer is fully informed and aware of how auditors are looking to test our systems to verify what we say we do. Part of this process is ensuring all LPA record keeping systems are in place and the manager has good records to back up their system. Using the LPA record keeping booklet is a great way to demonstrate compliance. It's also an opportunity to identify areas that may need to be fine-tuned using the NLAS database movement records. So it doesn't stop there. Once we've done a pre-audit visit and got all the information that we need and have discussed this with the producer and they're willing and able to assist in being part of that market access audit, we will then continue to liaise with the producer right up until the day of the planned visit, because we want the producer to be comfortable with everything that's happening and yeah, just to give them that guidance. So we will continue to reach out to the producer to ensure everything is okay and the records are up to date. Provide any updates to the producers, and the main focus is keeping the producer relaxed and engaged and feeling supported. It is a big deal to be selected as the site for the review, and the manager, you know, they can feel a bit of pressure. So the important thing is that we are there to support. The other part of this preparation is actually to present to the auditors, and this is generally done either in Canberra or they may come to our AusMeet head office. Now, AusMeet, we spend a lot of time to collate all the information to present to the audit team. This includes preparing a similar presentation of who is AusMeet and what is our role in industry. During the entry meeting in Canberra at the recent UK review, that entry meeting took 2 days. Not that AusMeet was involved in that entry meeting for 2 days, but what they just wanted to know everything that there was to know about our traceability system, our NVD system, and how it all fits together in order for them to form an opinion as to whether or not we were able to access that UK trade as an open herd. So the auditors are very interested in all aspects of the LPA system, including HGP and traceability, using the NVD system as a source of truth. The audit team had many questions for the AusMeet and the AusMeet team and IC on that day. The focus on the completed NVD and the records that backed up that NVD was a high focal point and demonstrates that a fully completed, legible NVD is essential to do the job just beyond the farm gate. Other focus points are linking the NVD to the EID for each animal. The other part of what we do, and I've got the numbering wrong there, sorry about that. The other part of that is accompanying the auditors to the site visits. So the audit team generally consists of, when we have the overseas auditors come over, they would generally consist of at least 3 high-ranking officials of that country that they are representing. Each of them has a unique expertise on the systems they are reviewing. I usually accompany the auditors to the site visits along with an entourage of people, which will include Commonwealth representatives, so people from DAF, our state representatives for NILS, and the recent UK review. At one time, we had 9 people sitting around the kitchen table at one property that we went to. It was actually our last property that we went to that day, and there was 9 people sitting around that table. They were there to support and talk about jurisdictions over the NLIS and provide the auditors the answers of how the NLIS system worked in relation to traceability using the EID. During the site visits, the auditors asked representatives many questions about their systems and request to see records to back up their answers. They are also very interested in the LPA audit process and how it works. They are checking what the site representatives know about the program and how compliant they are. What we got to know is that the auditors actually know a lot about our systems before they come here. However, their role is to actually verify our systems are working and can be relied upon to track and trace an animal at any time. The auditors are very interested in the livestock treatment records and how they are managed, and quite often they will want to follow an audit trail. So looking at your record keeping and then following that animal treatment record through the system to your outgoing NVD to ensure that it all marries up. So they're really testing the system. So quite often they will ask the same question many times, but different each time. They're not trying to trick us. They're not trying to trick us at all. They are just simply verifying our systems of what we say, what we say we do. Just a little note here that tagging livestock assists our production systems in many ways. Livestock management is much easier with recording information against an individual animal. The EID is a management tool that can provide detailed information about each animal, herd management, and building genetic profiles is just one way. Tagging and recording information of the livestock provides producers verifiable evidence that our LPA system is working and we can stand behind what it is we sell. The last part to that market access and preparation is actually following up with the selected producers and giving thanks to those people on behalf of the industry. It's important that we follow up with these producers who took part in this audit review to show them that we do appreciate them, because it is a big deal to be asked to be part of this, and they actually are giving up their time as well to be part of this process.
Can I ask a question here, Trish?
Yeah.
So what it sounds like is that the NVD waybill is just a ticket for a truck to leave a property, and that these auditors will check for that NVD through the supply chain, like from the producer through the sale yard to the processor, and so it needs to be handled accurately all the way through. Is that what you're saying? That's correct.
That's correct. That's what I'm saying. And the other thing to that also, Beth, is the other way around. So from the processor back to the property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tracing that animal as it's gone through the system. It's in a box already, but the NVD that they select at a processor, they want to be able to track those RFIDs back to that particular NVD through the system, which the processors will have systems in place that they're able to do.
So they will check the NVD against the NLIS database records, like the life history of those animals, and then they verify the treatment records and everything on farm where the NVD came from in the first place.
Okay, there's 2 parts to that. There's 2 parts to that. So the NVD on farm, they will verify the food safety aspect, so that involves the livestock treatment records and spray records, etc., to that NVD on farm. But at the processor, they can select any NVD that's come through the plant, and then the processor would then need to be able to demonstrate traceability of that NVD back to property.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can trace those RFIDs that came in on that NVD back to property.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when producers and even sale yards and processors, like, nothing happens at a slow speed. Everyone is always moving quickly with the stock. That sometimes we can lose vision of the fact that this is an auditable process, and that our market people, they do come to Australia and they want to check, and they do come and check. And so in talking with Trish earlier on, to hear that so many countries have come here and it can take 2 or 3 weeks for them to finish an audit, that everyone in the supply chain just needs to be very cognizant of the fact that someone else is going to handle that NVD and that scan file after you. And that's why it's really important to make sure you hand on as much information accurately as possible. And like I said, in the heat of the moment and the pace of work, with the myriad of things you have to do on a property every day, sometimes that falls by the wayside, I think, and the truck turns up and you're in a hurry. But what Trish is saying, by selecting a random NVD from an abattoir and tracing it back, just shows how you may, as an individual, become part of an audit, and that you will need to be able to back up what you've put there. So it's like the hidden part of our system. Like, we have EID and NLIS as a whole and LPA to help us. We always talk about disease control, and even on property use of it if you wish. But market access has always seemed a little bit harder to grasp about what that means. But I think you've made it very clear to anyone wanting to know, is a random NVD at an abattoir can be traced back to, well, needs to be traced back, and the information validated. And I think that that's what people need to have in mind when they are creating or handling an NVD through the supply chain, because that's what you don't see on property every day. It's the hidden part of it all. So that's a great explanation, Trish.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'll just reiterate, when it comes to the NVD, that was a very important part of our most recent review from the UK, and that was the source of truth. So using that NVD as the source of truth to enable us to access potentially that market through, without having to go down the UCAS type audit. Okay, so it's important that all information recorded on that NVD is accurate and legible.
Mm-hmm. That is the beauty of the eNVD, meaning that it has to be complete and it will be legible when it leaves the device.
That is so true. Okay, yeah. So the eNVD will help fix a lot of those problems. So I just wanted to touch on domestic and market access benefits. So if I was to say domestically, we are seeing more processors seeking approval for their livestock raising claim programs. The basis for these programs becomes the lifetime traceability status and relying on the movements record being updated in the NLIS database for all movements. The NLIS database is where the lifetime traceability status is verified. Programs are written by the processors and are reviewed by AUSME. So raising claim audits are independently audited, and there is oversight of the program at the processor level by the on-site Commonwealth representative. AUSME completes a thorough review of all raising claim programs and audits these systems as part of the trade description audits that we do. Many domestic customers and international customers have recognised these raising claim programs as being a major part of the red meat industry in selling their products. The benefits of being part of the audit program can include, as an example, more revenue for producers due to being compliant with the processor's requirements, and also other emerging markets that require lifetime status of the devices. The only source of truth for LT status is the EID, and this is done through the NLIS database. So the lifetime traceability status of that EID is set to yes, because it's lifetime traceable on application. So the importance of ensuring the movements from either property to property are recorded on the NLIS database to ensure that the animals maintain their lifetime traceability. If the animal loses its lifetime traceability due to an incorrect transfer, all that hard work that we put into raising that animal to be part of that raising claim program has now been jeopardised. So Australia's traceability systems are subject to regular independent audits that enhance transparency and ensure that they remain effective and credible. Overseas customers appreciate this transparency and view it as a sign of reliability and commitment to maintaining high standards. The Australian red meat is often preferred due to its quality, safety, and the integrity of its traceability systems, which are globally acknowledged. The Australian NLIS system is one of the most advanced livestock traceability systems in the world. The NLIS uses the EID tags to track cattle, sheep and goats throughout their lives, enabling full traceability from birth to slaughter. This system helps maintain confidence in Australian meat products by allowing for quick tracing of any animals in case of disease outbreaks or quality issues. In summary,
Can I ask a question first?
you sure can.
Sorry, Trish. When you're talking raising claims, are there programs are under the raising claims framework? Like, is it organic, lifetime traceable, grass-fed? What's the extent scope of that?
Yeah, so there are many new programs coming on from a processor creating their own branded products. And yes, it can be organic, it can be grass-fed, it can be never ever treated with an antibiotic, never ever HDP. Many claims that they can put together to be part of this program. Yeah, so I guess the benefits there is that processors are getting their own brand out and they're relying on the supply chain to be able to tick off on not only the NVD, but the declaration that the processor will have also that underpins their program. Okay, so the audit itself is audited independently by a certified auditing company. And as I said, AusMeat, who manages or administers trade description audits at processing plants, are responsible for auditing those trade description or raising claim audits from time to time during our on-site audits.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting, because it is becoming it is the competition side of getting your product in front of the consumers. So you do see that, and I saw the never any products in America. They were Australian products and they were marketed under never any, and it was really good to see them on the shelves over there.
I had the same experience, Beth, where I was over in the US there a few years ago, and at that time I was actually auditing the GAP program, which is a 4-step global animal partnership program, which is a US-based thing, and it was very pleasing to walk into the store and see this product labelled as Australian grass-fed beef, that it was a step 4 rating under their animal welfare program. So it was nice to go into that Whole Foods supermarket and see our Australian product on the shelf. And that's just
my test.
That's just
my
one
test
way.
is to find lamb chops and see, 1, how much they are, and 2, if they're labelled any differently to what we see that same product in Australia. Because sometimes the focus on international customers, people, but aren't our domestic consumers just as important? Of course they are, and the system is there for their food safety as much as the international customers. But it is very interesting to see the difference in the labelling. There's a far bigger focus on that declaration of safety.
That's true. Okay, so I just wanted to just quickly touch on in preparation of livestock for dispatch. So it's important that each animal is fit to load according to the MLA fit to load guide. We need to check that every animal to ensure that is correctly fitted with an EID. Review the livestock treatment history. Livestock are not in a withhold period or an ESI. A withhold period, ESI export slaughter interval. Take care to complete all sections of that outgoing NVD neatly and as legibly as we possibly can. And what is best practice, but it's not mandatory, so it's only best practice. So if I can just say that, it's not mandatory, but it is a good idea to actually scan your livestock and keep a file of that. That enables you, if those livestock don't get transferred off your pick, it allows you then at a later date to remove those devices from your NLIS database account. And just a little footnote there that it is the owner's responsibility to make sure that stock are transferred onto their pick before they move off. Okay, so if we're purchasing livestock through a sale yard, the expectation is that the sale yard is going to do the transfer onto our pick, but we must check that that transfer actually happened. So check your database to ensure that the transfer has been made onto your pick. The other thing to note is that if we are purchasing livestock through a virtual sale platform, it's important to note that the responsibility lies with the buyer to transfer those livestock. So please be sure if you're purchasing livestock off a virtual platform that you check the terms and conditions and ensure that you do the transfer. We tend to lose a lot of lifetime traceability statuses on animals due to platforms where the buyer is not doing the transfer. And this is where a systems transfer occurs. And again, it comes down to all that hard work that you have put into raising that animal, destined for a domestic program or a specific market in the overseas market that requires lifetime traceability. All that is lost if those animals have lost that lifetime traceability. So please, it's really important that we get that right.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better, Trish, because the issue with the online sales is that you are getting buyers far further from the seller than you would from your regional sale yards. So when these stock move, they move a lot further, a lot faster, and so the gap, the gap in location. If we have a systems transfer which just tells us that there's a gap in this traceability, the animals have moved from a property they're not registered to, what that does is massively increase the area that we have to quarantine when we are trying to do a trace back for any actual incident. So rather than it being a regional issue from a sale yard, you might have them going across multiple state borders, which incorporates far more processes and transport issues. So it's very important to know that. And while it's your responsibility as the buyer, you can get someone else to do it for you, but it's your job to make sure it's done. So it's a very, very important difference. On property congregation sales will be done for you, public auction, but those that are done online are your responsibility if you purchase.
Yeah, yeah, we're just seeing way too many systems transfers. And to be honest, when we go to do the audit and we do that investigation as to why there's so many systems transfers occurring at this particular pick, it comes down to the fact that they had purchased livestock through a virtual platform and didn't do the transfer because the same line is, I thought the agent was going to do that. Okay, so please be aware, you must check your NLIS database for all movements purchase cattle. And it's, as I said, it's a good idea when you're selling cattle to have that file. As I said, it's not mandatory, but it's a good idea to have that file just in case the buyer doesn't transfer those livestock off your property.
So one point from that, Trish, one of the questions we get often is, well, if the seller had to move them forward to me and if I don't have to pay them until they're transferred to me, they say that perhaps that will increase the transfer rate. Well, the bottom line is you can do that right here and now. So as long as either the vendor or the buyer can make a transfer on or off the property. So you can make an arrangement with your vendor that they transfer to you if that's more convenient. It's your job to make sure it happens, but that is an option now, and other people are also saying in their contracts of sale they will nominate who is going to do the transfer, whether it be an agent, the buyer, or the vendor. So just if you can be as involved or removed as you wish, but you need to make sure the process is followed.
Yeah, ultimately you are responsible for your own NIS database. Yeah. What it comes down to. So I'd just like to, just in summary, just summarise the fact that the overseas markets and domestic customers trust Australian red meat due to the robustness of the traceability system and the strong regulatory oversight that we have. We have high standards for animal health and animal welfare and a commitment to the transparency and sustainability of our red meat industry. This trust has helped Australian red meat industry secure and maintain a competitive position in the global market. So in closing, I'd like to say thank you to the Sheep and Task Force, Traceability Task Force for inviting me here tonight, and I hope that I've been some help to producers out there. And obviously, because I'm the LPA Livestock Program Manager, I'm also open to taking calls for questions through the LPA process.
Thank you very much, Trish. I do have another question, perhaps not as formal, but when you have these people come from other countries, what are their common comments about our system or our livestock management processes? Like, it must be very different from where they come from. So what's a common response to coming to Australia?
Yeah, so I guess that's a bit of a tricky one because they don't give a lot away. Okay, and in a lot of cases, when they're coming from, say, the UK or the EU, they're used to small type properties. They're actually very impressed with what we can show them when they come to Australia in relation to the size of some of the properties that we've taken them to, the sale yards and feedlots. Yes, in relation to saying, well, that was a good property, or that was a good record keeping system, they don't give too much away. They hold their cards pretty close to their chest. And we think everything's going fine. We think everything's going fine during the audit because they are very nice people to work with as well.
Mm-hmm. So how do we get feedback from an audit? Is like no news is good news, or do we get an official report?
Yeah, okay. So yes, there's always an official report. But having said that, we haven't received anything from the UK visit. Now, these reports do take some time to prepare because there are different individuals involved in preparing the reports and putting their bits together and all the rest of it. So look, yeah, I'm excited for what the UK audit will bring to us and our red meat industry. And I'm also excited, given that the goat and sheep industry now moving towards the electronic identification system, and I'm excited for that industry to what markets will open for them to be able to demonstrate everything that's been put in place in the cattle side of things.
Mm-hmm. So you do notice a difference between a cattle audit and a sheep and goat audit at this point in time?
At this point in time, yes, there is, because we rely on mob-based movement records, and those mob-based movements, because they're using the visual tag in some instances, it doesn't break it down for us enough to be able to hone in on a particular animal.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that draws tonight's session to a close. We have no other questions there. So this recording and the materials will be sent out to everyone who is registered, but we're also going to put them on our resources and support directory, which is available through the QR code on your screen now, and also will obviously be in the PowerPoint record that we send out to you. So on that page, it has state by state and sheep and goat specific information, everything from your legislation to how to use your NVD properly or an ENVD, how to use the database, how to identify your stock, and down to your state specific movement requirements and identification requirements. So it's a one-stop shop that will direct you to your state department as well, so you can access their full complement of resources. So that's where this webinar will be, along with the previous 6, as well as the ones that have been done by Integrity Systems Company. So greatest thanks to Trish Ryder for tonight, for your time and your insight into the part of our supply chain that we just don't see very often. It's beyond the farm gate, it's beyond the day's work. But we need to keep in mind that this is the end point of what we start. And like you said, it can be a major issue with the information missing from the beginning, and other people's effort in production can go out the window. So to show us the components of our traceability and safety system with NLIS and LPA they're valid and they are necessary tasks that need to be taken seriously if we want to maintain our markets, to maintain confidence in our product, to attract new products, new markets, and also to have the preferred status in competing markets because of our highly developed system. So I hope that throughout this series of webinars, everything from what you do on farm through sale yards and processes, on-farm production should you wish, and now with export and domestic consumption and the LPA auditing program, that you can go to the section that you need to get the information that is relevant to you at the time. So whether you are an extension operator, an agent, or a producer, there should be some resources online for you to do that. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks again, Trish, for coming on today and letting us know what happens behind our closed farm gates. Good evening to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.